Welcome back, pet parent. So today's episode is pretty cool. I haven't done this before, but we're actually doing a podcast swap. And if you're not familiar with what that is, it means that we recorded together and we're listing it on both my podcast and her podcast. And I think out of every episode I have ever done, this may actually be one of the most important, which is saying a lot. I realize that is saying a lot because hopefully you continue to come back to the podcast to continue to learn from all the incredible experts that I bring to you, which obviously is why I do this. But you if you've been here a while, you probably already know who Kara Hanrahan is. She's been on the podcast a couple of times. She's with Raw Paw Adventures, and her podcast is called Raw Remedies. Now, the reason why I think this episode was the episode to do this with, to have it go live on both my podcast feed and her podcast feed, is because there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in the world, obviously, but there's a lot going on in the holistic pet health space lately. And I hate using the words misinformation and disinformation, but there is a lot of that going on just within the health community in general, especially like human health. To me, it is entirely too politicized. Food, health, nutrition, science, none of this should be political, yet that's where we are in today's world. It is all politicized. And so Kara and I have decided, we did an episode on identifying an educator versus an influencer, specifically in the healthy pet space, the holistic pet space. And I think that this is just such an important topic, an important conversation to have, because it's our responsibility. It's an added responsibility for us to have to vet the people that we listen to online and know who we choose to trust and who we choose maybe to just be entertained by, right? Or not listen to at all. It's a new landscape. I mean, not new. Obviously, we've had social media for a while now, but we're figuring this out as humans. And I'm not sitting here, neither is Kara, saying like, I'm the expert. Like, in fact, as you listen to this episode, you're going to understand why and how we feel like we're providing the best content we possibly can to our listeners, and not saying that we're experts. With all of the degrees and certifications that we have, and we have different degrees. Kara's a nurse who has transitioned into functional medicine. My degree is, my traditional bachelor's is in psychology with a focus in animal behavior, and but we have some of the same certifications moving forward as far as the holistic pet health space is concerned. And I think it's just a really important conversation for us to have. So this intro is already way too long. Thank you for being here with me again, and make sure to check out the Raw Remedies podcast if you have not already done so. Here we go. Hello. Thank you guys so much for joining us, by the way. I'm nervous. Dining with Dinah said this is a salacious topic. I'm going with that word because it's sexy. Salacious. I like that word. But I think this is an important enough topic that, like, for me, I was like, no, this is a no-brainer. We need to put this out for, like, everybody to listen to.
Yeah.
And influencer versus educator, specifically in the healthy pet space. And I just I know, like, I just read through all of your notes, Kara, and I just wanted to start out by saying that, like, we're all human and we all make mistakes, and I feel like it's our responsibility in this life to learn and grow. And so I'm never mad at anybody for learning and growing. I can be disappointed, certainly. But, like,
yeah,
I think this is part of the human experience, and I just kind of wanted to start out by saying that before we
I agree. So like everybody, obviously we're all human. Well, I don't know. I barely consider myself an earthling. I think sometimes I'm from Mars. But you know, I kind of feel, and I said this the other day to Angela Artolino. I was talking to Angie, and I said, if you're going to be an educator, you have to commit to always being a lifelong student. The minute you stop learning is the minute you stop growing, and that is when you need to stop educating. And so I think my frustration here is, it's one thing to, and we might need to like clarify for some people who are listening, but it's one thing to think that you knew something was one way, and then to educate yourself and learn and grow and realize, oh gosh, it actually was more like this, or oh, I had more to learn. I didn't have the whole picture here. Let me like kind of come out and say like, oh, I learned more about this and I really grew in this area, and I wanted to let you guys know that, you know, I wasn't quite there when I was talking about it last month, last year, whatever. That's not what happened here.
Or we get new studies, we get new science, and we expand, right? Like that's
right.
That happens a lot. I mean, even for you and me, for sure. It's like,
yes,
look what we just found out, right? Like,
yeah, always new stuff coming on the market, always research is happening, and always new evidence is popping up, whether that's anecdotal evidence or, you know, a peer-reviewed double-blind placebo study that was done in a laboratory somewhere. But what we're talking about
super
today,
easy to find.
Well, yeah, I know. It's who's got the money for that. But what we're talking about today is a popular influencer brand, and I'm not going to drop names, but, you know, they put out this very long video, and actually, a small part of me didn't even want to have this live or have this discussion because I don't want to give them any more views. I don't want to build their platform further. And I have no doubt that some people listening, if they haven't watched their video yet, they're probably going to go and watch it. That's fine. But we're going to do a little bit of a breakdown, and it's kind of, on my end, I think a little bit of rebuttals about some of the things that they said and some of the way they phrase things. And to be honest, in general, in my opinion, almost gaslit the entire holistic pet community.
Yeah.
Is like what it felt
absolutely.
like.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe it might be good to start with like what we see differently, an educator versus an influencer. Like how, because I think influencer, even, I know there are definitely people like Rachel Fusero who like, I called her an influencer one time and she was like, please don't, I don't want to be that. Like, that's not what I want to be. And I get that. And I think like influencer and content creator seem interchangeable. And I feel like to be an educator, I don't think we talk about educators. I think they're just lumped into influencer or content creator as far as social media is concerned. And I think we should be able to tell the difference, because even in this very long video that we're talking about, that we're discussing today, the doctor who should have been an educator was very clickbaity, was very extreme, and it's like, yeah, we don't agree with him either. Like, I don't know why.
Yeah, that was an interesting part of their video, and we'll get to that eventually when we're kind of talking about the different stuff. But you're right. Unfortunately, people who should be educators sometimes turn into influencers. And I don't think that might not be in and of itself a bad thing, because sometimes
I don't think so.
When you're educating somebody, you are then influencing them to say like, hey, this brand of food encompasses all of the things that I've been educating you about, and I recommend them, or I use them. You could check them out. So perhaps they can go hand in hand. But I think what's been happening, what I've been seeing in our community lately, is people who step into the space who have good intentions, for the most part, without really getting that kind of deeper breadth of education and knowledge about a topic. They see something, they get excited about it, they jump on it, and they're like, this is the best thing since sliced cheese. Everybody needs to do it. And that's kind of where the problem lies, I think.
Yeah, and I think also some of the problem is in just how our society is today. So a couple of things that I want to address about being a content creator or an influencer. It is not easy. It is a full-time job. And so you have to make money somewhere, right? Like, you can't have a full-time job. You can't have a fully functioning medical practice or veterinary clinic or whatever it may be and be really good at being an influencer or a content creator. Like, it's just...
You can try and do both, and then you can be like me and give yourself autoimmune thyroiditis. It's totally fine.
Right, but that's the thing. Like, it is a full-time job. So we have to kind of, it goes both ways. Like, I also hate when people are like, I hate that you're selling me something, or I hate that you're recommending something. I'm never going to follow you again, right? Because they have to make a living too. So if you dedicate your time and energy, which would have to be full-time or close to it, to educating people online, you have to have a way to make income. And like, as long as you are being up and like only recommending or selling products that you actually do believe in, and you're not just taking any sponsorship that comes along. I know for me, like, having been in the space, even though I still can, like, I'm whatever a micro influencer is, right? Like, I'm small, but like, I have turned down hundreds of people asking me to promote their product or talk about their product, or I'll send you this product, or I'll pay you to talk about. Like, I have turned down hundreds just in the past couple of years because they don't align, right?
Right.
So like, if you're on the up and you're only, so that is one thing. You have to be able to trust the person you're following, that, you know, they're not going to just be promoting whatever comes across their desk, right? Like, that's one thing. And I don't remember the second part of what I was going to say, so there we go.
That's okay. So as we mentioned, for people who are listening live, we're going to be posting this on our podcasts. So
yes,
for future podcast listeners. So for me, that's Raw Remedies, a Raw Remedies podcast. For Jess, that's the Pet Parenting Reset. So for our podcasters, you're going to hear us maybe have like respond to a couple of comments that are on the live. So the Healthy Pet Nutrition commented and said, what's icky to me is that these influencers took advantage of many people and brands and then turned around and kind of gave them the middle finger, right? And I agree. I think it's actually one of the points that they cover in their video. And then she also said, and to say that there's no science behind the holistic modalities, upside down smiley face, for me, upside down smiley face means bullshit. So, I agree. And that was a big hot topic for me. Sorry, my cat's probably about to knock something over.
That's okay.
Was that, like, they kept saying, like, there's no science here. And it's like, oh my God. Right. Literally, the science of natural medicine and holistic medicine existed before there was organized society. Like, don't tell me that there's no science.
Right. Well, and I also think it's important to say that, like, I feel like we're both this way. I am very open to, I don't want to live in an echo chamber. If you disagree with me, I'm okay with us having healthy conversation and agreeing to disagree. Like, I'm totally okay with that. And I also think, even in this video today, or this podcast today, like, there are going to be things that maybe Kara and I are not 100% in agreement with each other on. And like, that's okay too, because we have different learned experiences. We have lived through different things. And she has an extensive, like, human medical background that I don't have. So we have very different experiences, and we may not 100% agree. And I think it's very healthy for us to still have this conversation together and bring it to you so that you can see that, like, we don't always have to be 100% in agreement with each other to still respect each other and not gaslight each other and not...
I disagree with that.
Okay. That's fine by me.
I'm just kidding. So, okay. So yes, 100%, I actually 100% agree with that. I don't disagree with that. There's probably going to be a few talking points that we maybe are not on the same page about, and I think that's totally fine. And I think that we should kind of dive in and just start breaking some of this stuff down, yeah?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. And so Dog Tot, I just really quickly want to say she considers herself to be both an influencer and an educator. Agree. I think we kind of talked about that a little earlier. She recognizes her limits as an educator. I feel the same way. This is why I have the podcast, so that I can bring people to you that know things I don't. Never collaborate with a brand I wouldn't use. Very selective. Turn down brand deals all the time. Completely agree.
Yep.
Some people who purport to be educators lack the knowledge base to actually be educators, but they don't realize the limits of their knowledge. And I think that is the problem, like, not realizing your limitations.
Exactly. And I had that problem when I first started here, which gave me like a big, almost existential crisis where I had to step back and go, okay, I can't just apply everything human to animal. You need to do a little bit more digging. So, and I think that it kind of is a good lead into the first point that I want to make for this video. So bear with us, guys, because this video that we're kind of doing a breakdown was like 2.5 hours long, and we're going to try and cram it into like an hour. But one of the biggest things for me was it kind of starts out saying like, we built a brand and wrote a book and then went on a book tour. And then we started asking the hard questions and had to unlearn everything that we had already learned. Okay, that's what they said. That really disturbed me because you should never be going all in and spending so much time and money in reaching so many people and saying and recommending so many things if you didn't already ask the hard questions. That's how you steer people wrong. That's how you steer people wrong. That's called jumping on a fad or following the hype and, signing up with brand deals and just getting the clicks and the likes and the follows rather than actually knowing the information inside and out before you put it out there for people to consume. So that's like how they kind of open their video explanation. And I immediately was really disturbed by that. So, and apparently so is Bear, if you can hear him barking.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, and probably why it took us so long to get to do this video, because it took me not 4 consecutive days, but the when I sat down to watch this video, 4 whole days for me to get through the video, because I would start and I would get so frustrated and like I didn't want to have those feelings. I need to I've been learning to actually feel my feelings again and like process them, and I would have to turn the video off. I'd have to pause it and be like, I will come back to this later. But that actually reminds me of the thing that I was going to say earlier, is that in our society, right, like this book deal was brought to them, and that was one of the things that bothered me. Like, I was really happy for them when that happened, because somebody like Rodney or Karen, Rita Hogan with her herbal dog book, like they had to fight and fight and fight and fight to get their book published, and this book deal was brought to them, and I was so freaking happy for them for that. And it's like to me, okay, the Forever Dog did amazing, the Forever Dog Life did amazing, the Herbal Dog has done amazing. So those are really great proof of concept that there is a market for these types of books. But the way the human brain works is that you can have like 20 amazing experiences, and that one bad experience is going to ruin all of it. And now, like, I'm so curious how publishers are going to look at this.
Yeah.
And see this one bad experience.
I worry that it's going to be like a, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. When something like this happens, I think it can really reverberate and backfire in a community like ours, which can be contentious and where we have so many big opinions and, people with big brains and lots of knowledge. And we already, I think, find it difficult not to fight amongst ourselves, which is frustrating in and of itself. But then when something like this happens, I almost feel like it's like the people waiting in the wings who are now going, I told you so. See, I knew it was bullshit, right? And I hate that, because that's not what our community is about, right? It's about building each other up and educating, and just literally all we all want is for our animals to live better lives. And I think that these influencers want that too, right? They only ended up here because they wanted their dogs to live the longest, healthiest, best lives possible. And they still want that. It's just that I think the way they're going about things is just not the way I would do it. Oops.
Yeah.
Sorry, my cat's causing an earthquake.
For me, and look, again, going back to like, I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. I have put out videos saying I was wrong.
Yeah.
2 that I can think of off the top of my head. One of which I now am like, was I wrong? I don't know. I'm, because I keep learning, because we keep getting new science, because we keep getting true, like real experts who spend their lives doing the research and studying the science, saying You know, when we really we have these new studies, or when we put these other studies together, like maybe this, maybe not. But I also think that's one of the things that is so difficult in every space, by the way. I think that, you know, allopathic Western medicine, really, we've gotten, it's like checkbox medicine, right? Like, that's where we are today. And so they have done a really, really good job in kind of indoctrinating us as a society to say everything fits in a box, and when it doesn't, that hurts us so badly that we're like, we can't handle it, right? We can't handle it. But the reality of the whole world we live in is that nothing fits in a box. And I think that's one of the things that conversations I know I had this weekend, because I just went to the More You Know Pet Wellness Summit, listening to some amazing speakers, who, by the way, Dr. Connor Brady gets up on stage and says, yeah, I'm constantly telling you guys that I was wrong because I learned something new.
Look at Dr. Karen Becker. She's also a great example. Do you remember when she talked about how she was so sad that she had been recommending early spay and neuter, 20 years ago, and now it took 20 years for us to realize the effects that was causing to animals, right? She followed the best science that she had back then, and, just in terms of population control and all of the trouble that we were having in America 20 years ago. But things changed. The research came out, evidence was presented, and she went, damn, I need to update my practices. Hey guys, let me be transparent about this. That's the right way. That's the right way to say you've learned better.
Right.
What we're discussing,
absolutely.
I think, is the wrong way.
But it was part of the conversation that we were having, like, privately, with the speakers and the vendors and the sponsors, like us behind, like, after all the pet parents went home. I don't, that sounds weird. We're pet parents too. Like, I'm not othering people. But, like, the conversations we were having were like, I get why this is so hard for a lot of people, because even amongst us, even in one day where we brought 5 speakers together and, I don't know, 10 vendors, like, we're in one day telling pet parents contradictory information from the stage. Right? Between the speakers, there's contradictory information. And, like, I think all of the speakers, all of the people that we know and love, are really good about saying, this is what I currently believe, but also there's room. Like, we never, I think, we try really hard to never come out saying it's black and white. We always come out saying, this is what I'm currently believing based on the research, but everything is gray. Right? And I think that's not what happened in this video.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny, they kind of make it clear that they have a bit of a black and white mentality also very close to the beginning of the video, because another thing that they mention is when they first kind of realized that this was the space that they wanted to step into, and they had all of these, truth bombs coming at them about things that they had never thought of before. One of the things that they did is like a complete, almost kind of like a health cleanse, and gave themselves an incredibly restrictive diet, which, allowed them to feel healthier and lose a lot of weight. But they felt like it was completely unsustainable and overly restricting, and kind of tout that as being like a negative of like being in the space and kind of like following, well, almost like following other influencers, right? And I completely agree. That sounds very restrictive, but that's also not what the Holistic Pet Space is recommending people do. We are recommending a healthier way of life, yes, but that way of life shouldn't be restricting or unsustainable. As a matter of fact, I don't think that I have heard anybody speak to the importance of feeding fresh food without talking about how to make it sustainable in a long time. I mean, everything when I'm talking about, I have, experts on or nutritionists on, or even on my website, I have I spent almost, I don't even know, 2-3 weeks combing through the internet to find as many co-ops by state as possible and compiling that onto a web page for people. Like, the people in this space want everyone to succeed.
Yeah.
If we didn't, we wouldn't be here. And also, we'd be out of a job. I mean, I'm not going to call it a job, but like for a lot of people, this is our job. And if we couldn't make this sustainable for people, if it was like, haha, chump, got you, and then move on to the next every single time, I'm sorry, where do you think we would be? This is millions of people that come back over and over and over. and are continuing to do this lifelong. So making things unsustainable sounds like more of a personal problem, not something that the holistic space stands for.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And also, it's really easy to look at the extremes on either side and say, because they scream at us, right? The majority of the population is pretty quiet. It's those extremes that are so loud all the time. And I think that's what I saw a lot of in this video was the extremes. And because I've seen it too. I've heard it too. You shouldn't be allowed to own a dog if you can't afford to feed them a species appropriate diet. Like, I would never say that to anybody, because you know what? A fed dog is better than a starving dog. And like, a dog in a loving home is better than a dog on the street. Right? Like, you do the best you can. I mean, I think that is something that we all have had to learn also. I think a lot of us, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us start out with like, no, we have to do it this way because this is the right way and this is what works. And then we kind of learn really quickly, hopefully, that like, you're not going to get very far that way, because that is unsustainable. So bringing in the extremes are unsustainable.
And unfortunately, the extremes, you're right, are the ones that tend to shout the loudest. But they're also the ones that I think are easy enough to go, all right, well, that person's maybe being a little bit of a zealot about this, and we need to just
for sure.
So they might be the loudest, but sometimes they're the easiest to ignore, and you can just put the upside down smiley face and go about your day. So.
Right. And I do think some of it, and I like reading through some of your notes on the video, like, I'm probably jumping all around here, but like, there definitely are creators and influencers. I think educators are the ones most frustrated with the algorithms, because we are so against doing clickbaity things. Like, we might try them in a very subtle way here and there, like learning that you've got to catch somebody's attention in the first 3 seconds by saying something. You know what I mean? Like, we try to do those things because we want people to see the content and hear the content and realize that like there's more there than just the clickbait. But a lot of creators and influencers especially are very clickbaity. So could I think of an instance where I would want somebody to eat a piece of chocolate over an apple? Maybe, right? If it's like organic, dark chocolate, fair trade, whatever, versus like a non-organic apple covered in a peel, maybe I would want you to eat.
Dipped in glyphosate just prior to consuming it,
Maybe I would want you to eat the chocolate versus the apple.
This is like Snow White 2.0. An apple.
Yeah.
Oh my God. No, I know what you're saying. Sometimes it feels like you're capitulating to get someone to watch, and because it is frustrating at the end of the day. And you know what? I have cried. I'm not ashamed. I have cried to you, Jess, to my husband many times, my poor husband, he's a saint, about how I spend so much time and effort, first educating myself, second turning that education into content. Excuse me, Goose. Sorry, my cat decided it would be a great time to step right in front of the camera. So getting the education, putting it into a format that I think people will like, taking the time to like upload it to each social, or to, make it into a Canva presentation or whatever, record it, whatever it is, and then put it out there for the world to see, and you get like 3 people to view it, and you're like, well, that's cool. I spent 30 hours on this. It's frustrating, and it's exhausting. And it's not fair. It's not fair when you see people like this, people who catapulted themselves to fame by saying the right things and making clickbaity videos and following all the trends, just to pull the rug out from under 1 million followers, according to what they say in their video, and be like, actually, we didn't really mean most of that. Like, it's infuriating.
Yeah, it is. It is very frustrating. And I
went
get
on a tangent.
No, you're good. Like, sorry. It's the reality of where we are, and it's the reality of society that like we can't sit and watch a 20-minute video anymore, right? Like, if you can't catch my attention in 3 seconds, I've got no time for you, right? Like, that, it sucks. We've allowed it to happen. right? With advertising and video games and, I mean, with social media in general, like, it's very much, you know, a slot machine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very much. Like, that's what they're designed to be, is each one of these platforms is like, how can we get better at being that slot machine that you can't walk away from? That's the whole point of social media platforms. So, you know, trying to figure out, and I think that is one of the really, I cried watching the video we're talking about. And I remember texting you when I forced myself to sit there the last like 30 minutes of the video without stopping it. And I was bawling crying because, one, mostly for the pet parents that are going to see that video and think that now they're doing everything wrong.
Yeah.
When I don't think
agree.
they are. I don't think they are.
I agree. I'm very afraid that this is going to either turn people off from the community because they're going to feel like things are too divisive, or that we're wishy-washy, or that people are going to take what they say to heart to the detriment of their pets. And I really hope that's not what happens.
Yeah.
You know, another one of the points that gets made in this video is, and I think I actually quoted it in my notes, it was said, quote, "Those who spread misinformation often aren't aware of it. They actually believe they're doing what's best for them and other people." End quote. I agree. That's very true. What's not true is to apply that quote to the holistic community as a whole. That is very wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and it aggravates me because they keep talking about how holistic modalities aren't backed by science, or they talk about how, like, one of the big points that they make is how they were all gung-ho about raw milk for a long time, and that they were considering doing just like drinking only raw milk for like a month to do a reset, and then pulled back and realized that they pulled back and realized that they weren't going to, I'm pretty sure, and I can't, you know, say quotations again, but they said something along the lines of, we realized that wasn't going to give us the nutrients that we need. And it's like, you know,
because we eat off of a spreadsheet every day.
Exactly. I just had a podcast episode on Raw Remedies podcast with the amazing Roxanne Stone of Solutions Pet Product.
She's the best.
She's amazing. And we talked about raw milk restorative diets. There is literally, I put it up here on my thing. This, since the 90s, doctors, physicians at the Mayo Clinic, which is one of the most famous clinics in America, have used raw milk to help reset and restore chronic gut conditions, autoimmune conditions, all kinds of things, allergies. There is so much data about raw milk and how it helps people when they're younger and can also help when you're older. And a lot of that has been applied to animals. To just throw that out casually and be like, well, we realized it wasn't giving us the nutrients we need. Please, Jesus, explain to me how we feed babies nothing but raw milk for like 12 months of life and they grow into tiny humans. Can you please explain that to me?
And it builds their immune system. It literally builds their immune system.
I can't.
There's a reason why we use it for restorative diets.
Oh, God,
I mean, I do this with my clients all the time. It does. That made me, that was rough. Because the reality is that the majority of milk production in this country is in industrialized, lot-raised cattle. And to me, I would never drink that milk raw. No. So I would very much like that to be the inverse. I would love for the majority of milk on the market to be raw, and I would love for the majority, all cattle, to be raised regeneratively and naturally. Yeah. That's not where we are. So no, like if you go into an industrial ranch, I would not drink that milk raw.
No. All you need to do is drive by it on the highway and you can smell why you would never want to drink or eat any of that product. Yeah. So yeah, terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about raw, like true, safe. Raw with amazing requirements. And for anybody's listening, check out Raw Farms in California. And Mark McAfee is the owner and founder of Raw Farms. He's phenomenal. I have met him in person. I've interviewed him on my podcast. I went to his ranch. I saw how his cows were raised. I saw his facility. I saw how they test every single batch multiple times for pathogenic organisms. I mean, I literally saw their laboratory. The ones that are doing it right are doing it right. And
Yeah.
that's how you do a restorative diet, right? So raw cow milk from them, raw goat milk from, Green Juju, Solutions. Now they have the sheep nog at Solutions. I mean, they're doing it right. Has ruined the dairy industry,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I mean, so much.
It
for
created
sure.
a lot of controversy, and I don't think that's something that's ever going to change. And also, we could probably spend like 45 minutes on just that alone. But that was one of the points that got me, I think, the most riled up. If you couldn't tell by how riled up I just got, again.
I had a couple other moments that got me just as riled up.
Tell
Not
me.
the
Well,
next
actually,
one.
before we go into it, I just want to read a couple of these comments from the live.
Yeah.
So, Four-Rooted
Yeah,
Paws
do
mentioned,
it.
in my eyes, they've lost all their credibility. I agree. And to be honest, last year, even before they came out with the whole "we don't recommend raw milk anymore," I saw that they started doing affiliate links with the farmer's dog. That was the moment for me. That was it for me, because I know what's in the farmer's dog formulations, and it's not something that I would recommend.
It's fresh formulated as kibble.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I see it.
Lots of seed oils, lots of potatoes and peas and things that our dogs don't need. So as soon as I saw that partnership, I was like, oh, I see what's happening here. It's where can I make the most money? So that's kind of when it flew out the window for me. Dining with Dina, that's a cute name, said, I say we just thank them for showing us who they really are and hope that we've all learned a valuable lesson. Be careful who you take advice from. I agree. Oh, hi to Sonia. Sonia from Raw Pets Food is here. I love Raw Pets. That's where I order a lot of my food from. She's amazing. Dog Tot said, I didn't watch the entire video, but from what I did watch, I didn't think their views changed that drastically. Framing the change as drastic as clickbait itself. I agree. They definitely made a title that was kind of clickbaity, I think, to try and get as many people to click as possible. But they definitely have drastically changed their views, because to say I went from drinking all raw milk to saying we don't trust raw milk anymore, saying that, they went all in on no vet visits, no vaccines, no flea chemicals, only raw. And now they're pulling back and saying, like, we still believe in fresh, but we don't think raw is best. And we thought that vaccines were the devil, and now we know that's not true. And it's like they swung from extreme to extreme. It's all about the conversation for each thing.
Yeah.
So it's not that some of the views that they're presenting right now I think is wrong. I agree. Raw isn't for every pet. Fresh food in general is just better, but it doesn't have to be raw.
Yeah.
Just like a lot of points that they made. But the biggest point, the biggest problem is that they did so much gaslighting and made it seem like there's no science here, that we don't back up what we say, and that we're all just influencing people. And we'll get to... I have another point later, I think, that will kind of solidify some of those things. So I'll come back to that. But okay, I think that was most of them. Oh, Dining with Dina said, I never found them credible. I asked many of my friends what even made them experts on anything. Same.
Well, and I personally never thought they were experts on anything. I mean, I don't consider myself an expert on anything either. But I was pretty darn happy with the reach they were getting for the message that I do believe in.
Yeah.
So that's where I was important. Like, yeah.
If you don't have the reach, it doesn't matter what you say. No one's there to hear it.
I mean, I think they're gonna. I think they'll probably keep some of their audience, especially the people who aren't in this. Like, if those were the only influencers they were following about holistic health, if they didn't get into and start looking into anybody else or following anybody else, they'll probably keep those people and sadly transition them back. In my opinion, sadly transition them back. But I do think they're going to have to build a whole new audience.
Yeah. And I'm sure they'll find it.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll find it.
It's out there. I mean, PetSmart and Chewy and Petco and Banfield and VC, like, they're thriving for a reason. Yeah. Right? You know what I mean? Like, the audience is there. For sure.
Banfield makes me cringe.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. What you were going to make a point about one of the things in the video that bothered you.
So many things bothered me. Honestly, like, I didn't quote anything here, but to say herbs in nature aren't designed by scientists and they aren't studied for health Like, that's what I took from it, from one of the first things they mentioned. Like, and just being in the space, I could tell who they were targeting all along the way, and that bothered me too. But, like, yeah, like, whatever you believe in, God, the universe, Gaia, like, whatever you want to call it, the earth gives us so much. Like, if we, and humans have destroyed it. One of the things that it just popped into my head, Connor talked about, I think this was just like at the coffee talk yesterday, but he said, no, it might have been on stage. He was like, if you zoom out to like a world view, whatever you believe in, a creator or the universe or whatever, and we say, what's a pathogen? And you look at the earth, humans are the pathogen.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? So like, that was absolutely, humans are the pathogen. Humans are the weed. Humans are the pathogen. Humans are the ones that are, but without us, like if we take away what we have done to the earth since industrialization, if we go back before industrialization, we can look and see that the earth gave us everything we needed. It's just not in anybody's financial interest, right? To keep it that way. That's what I see. That's how I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I remember Dr. Connor talking about that a little bit at the International Naturally Healthy Pets Conference. He was talking about like what is a pathogen, what makes something a pathogen. I really like that reference because you're right. We have kind of turned and burned the world since we've been on it. But, you know, now I think it's a bit more synergistic, right? Yeah. It would exist without us, but I guess we can't exist without it.
True. Very true. Yeah,
we need to just do a little bit better to keep our host in good health.
Right? Yeah. So Millie's Raw Life asked a question, Healthy Pet Nutrition kind of answered, but I want to jump into it just really quickly. Millie's Raw Life says, how do you feel about the effectiveness of homeopathy? I know there's not much info and studies on it for pets. Healthy Pet Nutrition says homeopathy has been around forever. Dr. Richard Pitcairn is a great resource. My understanding about homeopathy, which is pretty limited, though I have had multiple homeopathic veterinarians on my podcast to talk about it, is that we knew forever that homeopathy worked. Hahnemann, I think, was the originator. Is that right? Of homeopathy?
Oh, I
Dr.
know almost
I believe.
nothing about homeopathy. It's one of the things that I'm actually very intimidated about and can't wait to learn more about in the future.
I'm intimidated about it too. Even after having talked to so many people about it, it still intimidates me to try to use it. Like, I will not practice with it. I will not. I don't know anything near enough to recommend. Like, that's one of my limitations, right? I know that's a limitation I have. So Hahnemann, I believe, was the name of the doctor that originated the homeopathy. We knew so much that it worked so well. The majority of hospitals in the U.S. used to be homeopathic hospitals. And then was it Rockefeller?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he also was very much, he knew and believed in and wrote about the power of homeopathy. But once he started making all of his money through oil and found out through oil and then petroleum and now pharmaceuticals being petroleum based, he very effectively went out and said no more homeopathy, killed all the homeopathic hospitals to promote petroleum based pharmaceuticals. This was very intentional for you 100 years later, 100 plus years later, to not even think that homeopathy has basis in science. No, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. We just have to remember it and find it again.
I just don't know enough about it, but it's something that I definitely plan on adding to the toolbox one day, once I get more confident with the other things that I'm already using. One thing at a time, right? Not a little bit of this, a little bit of that, not dabbling, I'm diving. So can't dive into one until you finish swimming through the other.
And then Labrella. I wasn't even sad about Labrella. I was angry about
I need to go
Labrella.
lay down and curl into a ball. I can't with the Labrella.
I was angry about the Labrella.
So they made a comment about, so they mentioned Labrella and how senior dogs might have better quality of life if they take that Labrella, and that pet parents have no business shaming someone for giving it to their dog, even if it means that the dog ends up with issues down the line because of taking the Labrella. They were making a case that if it helps them now, even if it causes problems down the line, they shouldn't be shamed. That is bullshit.
Well,
and that makes me mad.
No, yes, but I don't believe in shaming people. I agree with the don't shame people part.
Yes, I agree. Don't shame people. But
However,
also educate people. It's not about shaming,
yes.
it's about educating. You don't say like, well, it's okay if you do this even though it's going to cause kidney failure later as long as they can get up and walk around for 2 weeks. No, that's not what we do here. We say, let's look into these multiple holistic and natural modalities that don't have side effects like that aren't going to potentially end your pet's life sooner just because it gave them a few weeks of relief. Once we learned what this drug was doing to animals, the outcry should be echoing across the mountaintops. So should anyone be shaming ever? No. But it's not, I don't know. I just was really disturbed by them saying that.
My issue is not at all with pet parents giving Labrella and Silencia to their dogs and cats. My issue is with the lack of informed consent in the veterinary industry. So, I mean, in the human medical industry as well, but we're talking about there is no, I don't know what we get. What do we get informed consent on when we go to the veterinarian's office? Like, I don't even know. Maybe
surgery, that's about it, because you have to sign for it. But no, I agree. And my own animal is the exact same example. Bear got Cytopoint for years. Never one time was I told about risk factors associated with Cytopoint. Never was I given information about adverse effects. Never was I given the insert in the package for this shot. Not even when I had to come back sooner and sooner in between each shot. Not realizing why that was happening and why it wasn't lasting as long for him. Zero information. It was literally offered to me as a miracle drug. Your dog has allergies? Well, we can give him this and his symptoms are going to go away. So, and that's unfortunately what happens with a lot of these pharmaceuticals, Labrella included. And that one is pretty scary.
For me, it is all about informed consent, because yes, if you have a 17-year-old dog who can barely walk, but you just feel it in your heart that they're not ready to go yet, then okay. If this is something you want to try and you understand what the risks are, okay. But on a 4-year-old dog, we don't even know the extent of what nerve growth factor does in the body. So we don't know the extent of what the risks are.
Yeah, you're right. Like you said, nothing is black or white. And I could make a case that maybe if you want to set up home euthanasia services, right? Or maybe you have some kids at college and you want them to be able to come home and say, goodbye. Or maybe you really are only hoping for another 2 weeks, 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay, I could see reaching for that fix momentarily. Not if you want years left with your animal, because you're not going to get it if you give this. I don't know. But yes, consent,
I agree.
Informed consent.
Pet parents
education.
don't know that.
Yeah. Yes, and no one's telling it to them except the internet after something has happened to their pet. Because why else would they look until it's unfortunately too late?
Yeah. Well, it's also so telling to me that like they put, is it Zoetis that puts out Labrella? I don't even know. Around the world, other countries have the disclosure, and we had to fight to get the disclosure in our pamphlets, in our product packaging.
So this was the point that I was going to make earlier, and then I wanted to wait. In this lovely video that we've been talking about now for 45 minutes, they reference a different video, an interview between a Dr. Gundry, who's a cardiologist, and Dr. Mike, who's a family physician. Now, Dr. Mike is one of those people on the internet that I would say is both an educator and an influencer. He's very well known. He's very handsome. He has a giant Newfoundland named Bear, who is like a walking pillow. Okay? I enjoy Dr. Mike. Dr. Mike...
Me too. I watch some of his videos.
Yeah. Dr. Mike reaches a lot of people, and he's doing the things, right? He knows how to make YouTube content, and he's famous for it. So, but in that content, his true goal and his passion is education. And to be honest, I actually didn't even look up this Dr. Gundry guy afterwards. I probably should have, to see like what he actually stands for. But essentially, what was he going on about, Jess? He was talking about how like fruits and vegetables are like bad for you or something. Like he made like one random statement like apples are poison or something.
Yeah.
Essentially, he's like a cardiologist trying to be a nutritionist, even though we all know that in traditional medical school, we don't get nutrition education. So there's that.
So, but I do think he is trying to be an influencer and kind of hopping on some of the bandwagons because
Gundry. Right?
it is
Gundry.
Gundry.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Gundry. Because it is true that the fruits and vegetables we have today are genetically modified. They are not the fruits and vegetables that humans would have been eating. Yes, most of them.
Or dipped in pesticides or, grown in soil that's depleted of nutrients. True. Yes. True.
Yeah. So it's not that his argument isn't rooted in truth. He's just taking it to an extreme to get people's attention.
Yeah.
As an influencer.
He also was using kind of disarming language. So essentially the reason why the influencers that we're talking about used this video as an example is because this Dr. Gundry, who is not a nutritionist, he's not certified as a nutritionist, he's a cardiologist. He made some admittedly kind of outlandish, outrageous statements about nutrition and about eating fruits and vegetables, things like that. He was talking about this pathway. Essentially, I think the whole thing that sparked the conversation was he was saying it's okay to smoke cigarettes because nicotine is good for you, because he tried to say that nicotine becomes nicotinic acid, which is vitamin B3, and you want your whatever.
Yeah.
He just goes down this ridiculous pathway, and Dr. Mike is trying to corner him and make him say, essentially, make it clear that he's full of shit.
Yeah, he was. He was. This is a stupid video. He is full of shit. I can't even believe that he would let Dr. Mike interview him knowing that he was going to completely pick him apart. But the point of this is in this video, they're saying that Dr. Gundry used disarming language and red flag language and specific tactics to disarm and reroute people, to make it seem like he knew what he was talking about when he actually had no idea. In that video, those tactics, that is what they're saying the holistic community and holistic vets are doing. They're saying that we are using red flags and specific tactics to make pet parents think that there's more evidence or more science or we know more about a topic than we actually do, because we're using fancy language and essentially fooling them. And I was just so disappointed that they would take such an obvious example of somebody really skewing the science and making outrageous statements and then try and say that that's how we as the holistic community act and try to make money off of pet parents. I was just really grossed out by that. Yeah, and I completely, I don't, out of anybody in the holistic pet space that uses tactics like that, I'm just gonna go with wherever you're pointing a finger, therefore going back, 3 going back to you. That's probably the worst thing that I'm gonna say on this whole live. But this is exactly like an average person who has no bandwidth, that are just, they're getting through their life, right? They are, and I feel it too. They're getting through their life. They're working their 9 to 5 or whatever they're working. They're maybe 2 or 3 jobs in this economy. I have no idea. They're just trying to do the best for their kids and for their pets. They don't have the bandwidth to really research things. You see clips, you see reels and TikToks, and you're like, oh man, yes, this type of content really sucks for those people. But this is also, and I was going to bring this up before you brought in Gundry, but I think this is a better place to bring this in, is that I just felt so many political undertones in this whole video, in this whole 2.5 hours. And this is a point where I was like, oh yeah, this is very political, because COVID was politicized. And by politicizing COVID, we have now politicized our whole healthcare system. And you're either right or wrong, you believe or you don't believe, and, I don't care what you think. They bring in RFK Jr., so I don't care what you believe or you don't believe about RFK Jr. Maybe it's too much for you. Maybe, and we all do change our minds. We all do learn and grow. So bringing up a 20-year-old interview or 10-year-old interview with somebody and saying, see, they've changed their minds, so you can't trust them. We all change our minds. That's the point. We all live and learn and grow, and there's new research, and we open ourselves up to that new you have to open. If you're not opening yourselves up to new information, then you're not going to grow. I don't want to stagnate. I don't want other people to stagnate. I don't think it's beneficial for them or for their pets to just stay stagnant. So, like, I had a problem with all of that. I have an issue with politicizing health. And I felt that so deeply. Like, it was just like this, like, hum underneath everything in the video that felt so political to me.
Yeah. I think I didn't notice that, or like, I guess see it quite in that light. Although now that you mention a couple of those things, I agree. I can see where you're coming from. And I have a feeling that you and I probably have different opinions on a few things.
We do.
Just
I think we
based
do.
on like what you're explaining, which also again is totally fine. But you know, whether or not that influenced where they were coming from with all of this, I don't know. It could have partially influenced, could have been a big influence, or could have had nothing to do with it, and they just wanted to like use these as examples to like pull them in. Maybe partially because those things in and of themselves are hot topics that are that like make people watch and react and share and comment, right? So like the more again, it's all about the algorithms. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and that does, I don't know. There were so many other things like between Gundry and RFK that like I know I had made notes about, but and I do think that does bring us to a topic where I think we agree, but not 100%, which is on vaccines. And I do feel like they definitely changed their minds big time on vaccines. They call vaccines prevention.
Prevention
in the video.
Okay. So I wrote a note. Tell me if this makes sense to you and if this is actually the part where you're at. So I had put a note in here. It's number 18 of 30. Guys, I made 30 talking points about this video. Number 18 was like using the clips of RFK Jr. and the clips of him saying that like unvaccinated kids are brighter, smarter, more engaged, blah, blah, blah. And they feel like this is like very like insane, like mantra essentially. And my own personal opinion, I'm not afraid to put it on here, is that I do think that that's like kind of over the top. Some of those statements that he made, I think that it's really unfair for people who like live with autism and like make a life, and they have jobs, they have thoughts, they have opinions, they have love, spouses, children, right? I think to make broad statements, like blanket statements, will never do you well in healthcare.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
And so I do think that like some of the approaches being taken are like a little bit over the top. And I personally do not feel like I am educated enough or have read enough research in the human realm to be able to take a stance about vaccines and autism. I cannot say one way or the other, yes, I believe this, or no, I do not. And I won't, because I would be foolish to do so without having educated myself enough about it. But what I can say about vaccines for dogs and cats, for our companion animals, is that there is no precedence for the ridiculous standards that are set about vaccines for animals. And there is no reason why a 10-pound Chihuahua versus a 200-pound Newfoundland should be getting the same dose of rabies vaccine every year, when we have science that shows us that you continue to mount an immune response against rabies for upwards of 7 to 10 years. Literally, blood tests will prove it to you. And there's no reason why veterinarians should be able to get titer testing and not get a booster unless their titer test shows that they don't have appropriate enough immune response. And they do that if they get like bitten, scratched, or whatever. Vets that are exposed to potential rabies don't get rabies vaccines every year or every 3 years. They just don't. So why is that appropriate for humans, but we can't use that science on pets? And it's about money. And unfortunately, that in and of itself is politicized, which is really like frustrating. But I can tell you guys too, it's the same thing for people. If I get a healthcare provider in my emergency department who got a needle stick, it happens. I've had a needle stick before. We draw their blood and we check and see if their hepatitis B titer is still active. If you show that you have immunity to hepatitis B, you don't get a booster. If you show that you don't have an immune response to hepatitis B anymore, you get a booster. Why? Because you just stabbed yourself with a needle from somebody who has hepatitis B, and you don't want to get hepatitis B. But we don't just give it to you without checking, right? We check.
Yeah.
Why do we do that for vets? Why do we do that for healthcare providers? But why do we not do it for animals? There's no reason other than money.
I agree. Well, and I actually agree with all of your statements there. Like, I don't know near enough to say one way or the other on like vaccines in humans and autism. I do agree that it's that we should look into it, though.
Like,
I don't think we can.
Question, you research.
Exactly.
Sorry.
That's that's where I'm at with it. Like, it's not absurd to ask the question and research it.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's a question, if you're not sure, if the science doesn't make sense, if the trail doesn't track, then you look into it, right? If the studies, you know, if everything that we're doing right now is based off of a very small subset of studies, like 5 of them that were done in the 80s, well, maybe there does need to be more research. I agree. Don't stagnate, right? We've said that multiple times here.
Yeah.
So I do think that there always is room for more research, always.
Yeah, and I think there's room for more research with dog and cat vaccines as well. You know, they tried to do the was it the rabies challenge study, and I mean, the reality is what you have to do to these animals to complete these studies is horrific, and we don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Right? I get that too.
You don't want to inject an animal with the rabies vaccine and find that some of them actually end up getting rabies. We don't want that.
Yeah.
But is there a different way? I don't know.
I don't know either. And it's unfortunate that we can't take what we do know, like you just said, that we can measure the immune response through a blood draw.
Yeah. Just titer. I don't know.
Just do that.
It's not that hard. It's not that hard. I'm moving. Actually, if I pointed my camera literally anywhere else in this room right now, it would look like an explosion happened. But our moving truck, our pods that we have to load up comes in 4 days. And I saved this section for last to be broken down so that we can do our live today.
Oh my goodness.
So it looks nice, but actually I'm surrounded by chaos.
Chaos, yeah.
But I'm moving back to New York in just a few weeks, and I need to find a new vet. And I'm so terrified that I am not going to be able to find a vet that is going to accept titers. I was very lucky to have found an integrative vet here that lets me titer my animals. And I'm very scared to go home and have to get established with a new vet and have them tell me that my 3 geriatric cats need a rabies titer. Or my dog who has a history of pancreatic issues needs a rabies booster. Or my dog with a history of leaky gut and environmental sensitivities needs a rabies booster, right? I don't want to give that to my animals who either are geriatric or have had health conditions. That's not what their immune system needs. So it's frustrating when, you know, the education doesn't match like the actual legitimate science. And I don't know, without being a lawmaker, I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah.
But I think our point about this was that they swung from no vaccines ever, they're the devil, to vaccines are preventative, so actually we should be getting them. And there's no evidence there's no true scientific evidence to show that vaccines can cause problems.
Well, which I also think is a very extremist view to begin with, right? Like, that is to say no vaccines ever. And yes, there are veterinarians, or excuse me, not practicing, because they can't say it. If they're practicing, if they have a current license, they cannot say no vaccines. But there are people who were veterinarians who say no vaccines ever,
and who got in big trouble for it and elected to forego their license.
Yeah.
Because they felt so strongly that that was not a part of their do no harm.
Yes. Well, and there are no-sodes, and there are other ways to create, you know, a healthy immune system that has appropriate response to certain things. This is, again, my limitation. It's out of my purview. I haven't done it. I can't talk to it. I had Bree Drake on the podcast recently. She did it with her most recent dog.
No-sodes.
So, no-sodes. Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't know enough about it, and I want to, but I don't yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I send everybody to Dr. Will Falconer. I'm like, there you go. That's there you go. Yep. That's beyond my capabilities at the moment. But yeah, I just think that, again, it's not allowing yourself to live in the gray. And I think if you don't allow yourself to, if you do take this as a very black and white, if you have that black and white perspective and you can't live in the gray, then you are going to burn yourself out and you are going to feel like it's unsustainable. And I think that maybe that's where they wound up, because there was a lot of talk about none of this being sustainable. And the idea that the average pet parent can't do this because it's not sustainable bothered me, because there are average pet parents everywhere doing this. Like, yeah, maybe it's still a small percentage of the dog and cat population in the U.S. I can only speak to the U.S. I have no idea what's going on in the rest of the world. But they are doing it. They are doing it. So it takes, sure, is it going to take more? But guess what? Gen Zs are not having babies anyway. Like, there's a whole movement of, like, nobody wants kids anymore. Okay, great. They're all treating their pets as kids. If that's what you want to do, great. So then you do have the bandwidth to do this with your pets, right? I don't know. This, again, stream of consciousness that I have about it.
I think maybe like a couple more points before we hop off. Or let's see. I had something about their website, I think. Oh, yeah. One of the phrases that they used that pissed me off was that they said, quote, "I literally drank the Kool-Aid."
Yeah.
When they were talking about raw milk and the holistic
raw
pet
milk.
space, I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Tell me more about Kool-Aid." All I can think about is like the Kool-Aid man like bursting into their house. Do you remember this?
See,
yeah,
the
Kool-Aid man.
all I hear in my head when I hear that is like the cult leader guy, the like.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, which I think was the reference that he was making. I don't believe this is a.
I don't know. I'm a part of the Jeep community. You want to see a cult? Go join the Jeep community. We're a bunch of psychos.
Oh, I was gonna say, do you want to start a cult, Kara?
Hell yeah, I do.
Let's start a cult.
I'll start one.
I would be terrible at it.
A bias. Let's talk about bias. One of their complaints was that companies who sell raw milk and share information about the safety of raw milk have no business doing so because they don't warn about bias, about their potential bias. Anytime you make and sell something, you assume there's personal bias there, right? I made this, I'm selling it to you. I am biased that it works and it's healthy and I want you to purchase it from me. I personally don't think that you need to make a disclaimer about personal bias for the product that you're selling. Yeah. Now, on the other hand, if you are an influencer or an educator or somebody who does not make or work for that company, but you make a profit from helping to sell that company's product, that is bias that you should disclose. And the best way that I can explain this is, if anybody has ever watched like an educational video webinar, and I mean, I've watched a bajillion of them over my career in healthcare. At the beginning of these educational videos, it starts with an introduction. I'm Dr. So-and-so. I'm nurse practitioner, blah, blah, blah. These are my disclaimers. And they will say if they have stake in any companies, or if they have ownership of any companies, or if they make compensation from any companies that they might mention in their lecture. So there's a difference between, I believe in raw milk, so I own a dairy farm and I practice good practices to bring you this healthy product, or I'm an influencer who gets 10% of whatever you buy because you used my affiliate link, right? I think
there's a big difference there. And also, you know that saying that like when somebody criticizes you about something, it's because that's what they fear in themselves. Yeah. Like that's just the vibe that I'm getting. Again, like I don't want to be like super Debbie Downer. Like, yes, we're allowed to change our minds, and yes, I think it's just we were attacked. Like when we get closer to the end of the video, like we were attacked. And I feel like, I mean, we've had this conversation so many times where like you have such an extensive human medical background that like it feels, a lot of people, how do I want to say this? Like there's a lot more credibility in what you're saying versus what I'm saying. And I can realize that, and I'm fine with that. But like,
I don't know if that's always true though.
A lot of people feel that way, and I can acknowledge that and not feel threatened by it. Like I can support you and lift you up because like I know that I think you're doing a good thing and not feel like threatened by that. But like, I guess all that to say like that we do share a couple of certifications, and those certifications were attacked.
Yeah. And there's things that you might say, like, I'm not comfortable with, go to this person. And it's the same thing for me. Like, for example, if somebody came to me and they wanted me to help them DIY raw cat food, I'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Here's my friend Jess's contact information because I have no idea how to do that. I can recommend 3 or 4 excellent pre-made raw or cooked brands for you to feed to your cat. But I don't know how to formulate DIY raw for cats. For dogs, come at me. Come at me. I will give you all my information. Cats, absolutely not. That's not my wheelhouse yet. Here's my friend Jess. You know what I mean? Like, there's not everybody can be an expert in everything. And I think being able to play on your strengths, but then uplift others when they have those strengths that you don't is so important. And I think that we do a good job of that in this space. And so
I do too.
I think that's why it was so frustrating to feel like so many blanket statements were made.
Yeah.
Bear heard me get loud, and I think he knows that my emotions are running high, so he came over to breathe heavily into the microphone.
Aww. Well, and one thing that I want to say, and this is not something I don't think I've ever said to you before, but somebody else said it to me, and I had to sit with it for a while, because I think we have some aligned beliefs in one of the certifications that we have. And somebody said this to me, and I had to sit with it for a while to realize that with this particular certification, it's all recommendations. There are no treatment plans. There's no, like, this is all recommendation based. As a coach, everybody, whether you're a doctor or a veterinarian or a human health coach or a pet health coach, we all get our education, and then we have to start out practicing. Practice. It's a practice, because you have like a knowledge base, and then you actually have to go out and use it and see how it works and see how things differ with different individuals. And like, you know, I'm supposed to do XYZ for this, but I have found that if I add this or take this away, it actually works better. Like, the idea that it's called practice for a reason, I had to sit with that and be like, okay, like, people need that breadth of space. Well, and that's not to say that it's going to work out for every one of them, but the reality is that, like, there is so much need that we also need to give the people trying, that are getting the education that is out there, we need to give them the space to help, because they may not be able to help with everything, but they're going to be able to help with some things. And is that better than nothing? And I think it is.
Yeah. And just always making sure that you continue to learn and grow and educate, right? The buck doesn't stop when you click the last test that you took for your certification, right? Or when you get it in your email or whatever. You have to keep going from there. And if you don't, then you have no business being around, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. I think we're kind of on the same page there, but it was called out. Yeah. And it made me sad. And not because they're 100% wrong, but that, again, it's a blanket statement. It's a black or white, and everything in this is gray, I think.
Yeah. And so this video, this 2.5-hour behemoth, ends with kind of like a call to action, right? To scientists, researchers, and like other people with, quote, formal degrees. And they say that those people need to make more social content so that millions of people can get better information and essentially have their lives improved through science, rather than only being able to get this information from people in the holistic space who they feel are spreading a lot of misinformation. And what I have to say about that is I spent 12 years, I know I look like a child, an adolescent in my senior year of high school, but I spent 12 years working in medicine, literally sometimes saving people's lives. I'm not kidding. Like, I have.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes all I do is sew a laceration, and sometimes I bring somebody back from having had a cardiac arrest, okay? Like, I have done all ends of the spectrum. But despite the fact that you might feel comfortable coming into my ER and putting your life in my hands because I received that education, I had huge gaping holes in my education in the realm of nutrition, natural modalities, and holistic health. And those things should be a part of every well-rounded curriculum for somebody who is going into healthcare or veterinary care for animals. And it was not. And so if you had come into my ER and wanted to talk to me about nutrition, I would have not had anything to say to you. So it is not fair to say scientists, researchers, and people with formal degrees are the only ones that you should be listening to, because I would have jack shit to say to you about nutrition 12 years ago or even 5 years ago. I had to go and find that information myself. I still put a fruit roll up in my lunch every day 5 years ago because I thought I ate chicken for dinner when I went home. So it was okay that I was eating, colored plastic. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
You can't just say you have a formal degree and so you are an authority on all things.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. It's disrespectful for the people who have worked hard and went out and got that information and educated themselves just because it didn't come with a $20,000 2-year college, certificate or a $100,000 6-year college degree like mine. It's not fair.
Especially today, when we literally have every bit of information that we could ever want access to at our fingertips. Mm-hmm. Granted, not everybody is utilizing it. Most people are not utilizing it. But if you take the initiative to go out there and find that information and learn that information, like, props to you, because that's not easy. In fact, I think it's harder than walking into a classroom and having it handed to you.
But yeah, exactly. Because now with AI and, bless AI, whatever, it helps me like edit my blog articles. But if I went into a chat GPT that I haven't trained and I said, is garlic safe for dogs? Mm-hmm. Guess what answer I'm going to get, right?
Nope. Yeah.
So that doesn't mean you are an expert in all fields because you have a chat GPT. No. It doesn't work like that. You still have to go out and actually find credible sources and fact check and get the information from a primary source and then be able to read it and understand it and apply it. So it takes work. And to foo-foo all of the people who do that work, shame on them. Shame on them.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I just want to say one thing about veterinary nutritionists, which, by the way, I have so much, and I say this all the time, I have so much respect for veterinarians.
Yeah.
They have a knowledge base that I don't have. I am not here trying to tell anybody anything differently. I have a lot of respect for them. But my view, based on what clients have brought to me of what you get from a veterinary nutritionist, is just cut and paste AFCO, like that's what you're getting. And I think people come to you and me because they have either, whether through education or something horrible happening to their pet, have realized that that's not what they want for their pet anymore. There's a huge difference. I'm not saying veterinary nutritionists are bad or wrong. I'm saying that, like, there's room. And there is a difference. And that difference is there for a very good reason.
I agree. Well, I think the takeaway is there's room for growth, never stop learning, and the world isn't black and white.
It isn't. And at the end of the day, learn what's clickbait.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much clickbait out there that I get that it's hard. This is a new responsibility that we have as humans in the world.
Yeah, to weed through it and find the right stuff. All right, I think that's it. I think that wraps us up.
Yes.
It was nice talking to you.
You too. I know everybody keeps saying they want us to do more of these, so.
I would love to. I'll try and be a little bit less Italian with my hands and my voice next time. I talk with my hands. Yeah, maybe like after the summer though, because you're moving. There's so much travel. There's AFCO, there's Super Zoo, which we're both going to be at. So we will probably do at least one live maybe from AFCO. Yeah, for
and
sure.
We'll figure all that out.
All right, well, I'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys, have a good day. Bye.